Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. So like many of you, I have trouble sleeping. I have insomnia. No matter what I tried, it wouldn't work until I met Mike Lindell, and I got my very own MyPillow. It has changed my life. What makes MyPillow so different is MyPillow's patented adjustable fill. In other words, you can adjust the patented fill to your exact individual needs so you get the support you need and want to help you get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 1-800-919-6090. Remember, use the promo code Hannity. When you do, Mike Lindell will give you his best offer ever. Buy one pillow and get another one absolutely free. MyPillow, made in the USA, 10-year unconditional warranty, and it has a 60-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. You have nothing to lose. So it's time for you to start getting the quality of sleep that you've been wanting and we need. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Promo code Hannity. Take advantage of Mike's special 2-for-1 offer. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and I am back in the seat for my good buddy Sean Hannity on the Sean Hannity Radio Show, literally broadcast all over the universe. I can guarantee you if the Navy actually saw Martians, which there was something last week about some UFOs, they know about this radio show. I can guarantee you that they know. So anyway, here we are back again. Those of you that don't know who I am, you're going to find out today. I'm a former Navy SEAL, Federal Air Marshal, security contractor, and FBI special agent. I say that every time. Why do I say that every time? Because I want you to understand that I have some cred when I talk about the things that I talk about. I'm not just a talking head, as most people know. And I also want you to realize, as I talk throughout the day today, that I never put myself out there as the end-all, the be-all, know-all of all things. I try to never expound upon things that, you know, I really have never done and I don't know. Because I think it's important that we get back to a place in this country where Americans actually represent exceptionalism, morals and ethics, service, and more importantly, unity. We can't really have unity without all those other things, because what happens when you don't have the exceptionalism, the belief that you are somebody who is going to do great things, you subscribe yourself to dependency. If you don't have the morals and ethics, what happens is you tend to go astray into narcissism and psychopathology and politics. So this is the truth when we look at this stuff. And unity, without service and without the other things that I just spoke about, you're never going to have true unity. So as I reflected on this show today, and I was talking to Lauren and I talked to Linda about how I wanted to do this show today, I wanted to focus on Christmas. And we have so many different Christmas shows that you're going to turn the TV on. You're going to see all these different things. And I kept thinking about, I do a show every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called The Experts. I do it from my studio, and it's simulcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I got a little surprise. I'm going to tell everybody about that. I kind of broke the surprise last night, but I'm actually going to be doing that from next week. It's going to be from 1 to 2 p.m., 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. next week, and then we may adjust that to where we start doing it at 12. But that's on Newsmax television. And so I'll tell you in a little bit, I'll tell you about how you find Newsmax. But so this show is going, that I do call The Experts. I call it The Experts because I don't have talking heads on there. I only have people that I think are capable of talking about the actual things that they have experience in. I don't like talking heads that have never actually operated in the field that they want to expound upon. And the reason is because I feel, as I said there at the beginning, that we've gotten away from exceptionalism. We've gotten away from the morals and ethics. We've gotten away from the service and the unity. And people are just comfortable in their image. They're comfortable in the perception that you have of them, not the reality of who they are. And they're actually comfortable with that. Instagram is a perfect example. People take 500 pictures until they get the right angle to where they look the best, not when they look like they actually look. So, yeah, Ethan knows all about that. He spends massive amounts of time on Instagram. Is that correct?
More than time that I work.
He said more than time that he works. So what I want to cover today is the reality of what Christmas actually is. The reality of what of Christmas has been to different people that have been in the news, and how America is closely tied to this spirit of Christmas. You know, I'm looking at FoxNews.com, and I'm seeing that the main headline on there right now is that the world thumbs nose at the U.S., that Trump and Haley, this is the headline off of FoxNews.com, warnings ignored as UN condemns moving American embassy to Jerusalem. This is just interesting to me because I can guarantee you as we look on all the mainstream media that they're going to be talking about this. And the reality is, who cares what the UN thinks? I mean, the reality is the UN does nothing to determine what is best for the United States and whether or not the United States is in the best possible shape it could be, and they do nothing for that. I know as an FBI special agent, I was in charge of the special events program where I was the liaison every year to the United Nations General Assembly for a period of time, and I watched the reality of these people come in and go and get up there and speak. And the reality is, folks, these people, whether it's the UN or Washington, D.C., the majority of them do not have your best interests at heart. They don't have America's best interests at heart. And I used to sit there and think, as I saw these people walk through, that the reality is Americans need to have their best interests at heart. America needs to have its best interest at heart. And I don't really care what the UN has to say. All the rage in the news over the past year has been the fact that the Russians supposedly interfered with our election process, which I've still not seen any significant proof or evidence of that beyond what every other country does. So why should we care what the UN or the rest of the world thinks when we say we're going to move our embassy to Jerusalem, which is the capital of Israel? Why should we care what they say? They don't affect our daily lives here. So again, what I'm trying to get towards here is that every year we celebrate Christmas. Every year people go out and they help each other out and they give gifts and they're good to each other and they do the right things for each other. And that lasts for a season, a few weeks actually. And then they go right back into the grind after the drinking of New Year's to the point where, you know, people are flipping each other off in traffic again. They're not holding the door for each other and they don't really care about each other. And I think this year, especially with this massive audience that Sean has cultivated throughout his 30-something years in radio and television, I think that America and all the Americans, the citizens in this country, natural born or not, or immigrated here legally, we need to get back to the point where this feeling that we get on Christmas is the feeling that we have all the time. Folks, if we commit to each other and to treating each other the same way we do for the 2 weeks, 3 weeks that we around Christmas, you will see a turnaround in this nation. You will see ethics and morals develop again. You will see politicians that are actually leaders evolve again in Washington, D.C. You will see the right people step forward to do what needs to be done to take this country back on track. Yes, I believe we have the right man in the White House. I believe President Trump is the man to be in the White House, but I believe he's surrounded by a complete cesspool. I believe he's surrounded by people in and around the White House. It's like rings of security that the establishment has put on the president. You have the inner circle, which is the president, and immediately when you step out of his office, he's surrounded by these globalists, by these, really, I would call them communists, establishment members. You step out of that, you have the Congress and the Senate and the Supreme Court. They're standing against him. You step out of that, you look at the RNC and the DNC and how they have their fingers in every seat of power in the United States. Those are two private companies, by the way, in case you didn't know that, the RNC and the DNC, two private companies. They're not government entities. That's why George Washington, who we'll be talking about here in a bit, warned against political parties. And so what we've done is, what they have done with the president is the same thing they've done with the rest of the United States. They have blocked our ability to be exceptional, and it all focuses back on them, just like the UN tries to do with the world. That's why you have wasted money in the UN. That's why you have people like from some of the most violent, terroristic sponsoring countries sitting in some kind of peace panel. It's nonsense. I went to a thing once in the UN, just to give you a little hint of what I'm talking about. I was there for the FBI, but I stood by and watched a conference that was happening, and it was about world hunger, global hunger. And they had Harmy Karzai, Bill Gates were sitting up on the stage, several other prominent people, and then you had this whole audience of very wealthy philanthropists. And I sat there and watched it for over an hour. Not once did they talk about how we cultivate the soil. How do we get farmers or people that want to be farmers from these areas where there's no agriculture, bring them here, teach them how to farm, and send them back. There was no talk of that. There's no solutions. It was all about raising money. You see, that's the truth, is that the world, at least the world representatives that go to the UN, the people in Washington, D.C., they're not that much different. They take real issues and they spin them so that it all comes back to them and making them look important. And as we go to break, 800-941-7326, 800-941-7326, that's the number. That's 800-941-SEAN, in case you want to spell your numbers. I want you to think about this. This whole show, I'm going to be talking to different people about the reality of an exceptional United States, about the exceptional American people, the exceptional America. And how do we do that? This mindset that you're in right now that we're going to talk about today, you stay in that. And one last thing before we go to break. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness in Attack Survival. It's a book I have out right now. It's all about empowering you. If you want a stocking stuffer, if your daughter or son are going to be going to college this next semester, if you live in a city and you don't feel safe, or if you're just an American who wants to be empowered again, go to Amazon and order it right now. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness in Attack Survival. Just look up Sheep No More. You'll see my mug on the cover of the book. Order it now. Order it today. And you'll get it here in a couple days or a week, and you will be on the right step to being empowered again. This is Sean Hannity Radio Show. Jonathan Gillum filling in for my good buddy. This is Jonathan Gillum back in for Sean Hannity on the Sean Hannity Radio Show. And as I was talking there a few minutes ago, we are so close to Christmas that right now you are feeling the Christmas spirit. And I want to make sure I made myself clear on that intro. This is the spirit that is going to make America great again. Yes, our president is the man who's going to turn the ship. He's turning it. But he's not going to be the one that docks the ship. We are. He is the guy who, like a special forces team, flew out, boarded the ship. Think of Trump as this exceptional SEAL who fast roped onto the ship with him and his little band of pirates, and they got on the ship. They took it over. And he's turning it. Meanwhile, all the establishment people are jumping off. The rest of the ships that are out there in the ocean that are nefarious, they don't know what to do. He's turning that ship. But Americans are the ones that are the battle force that comes in and guards that ship, surrounds the ship, and mans the ship. See, that's the way it works. When you do ship seizures, the initial force that goes on there takes over the ship. But there's eventually going to have to be a crew that comes over and mans that ship if you take it over. And that's what America is. The feeling that you have right now is what you are going to have to continue to have throughout the rest of the year. Now, we're gonna go to break here in just a minute. So what I want to do is I want to spend just a few seconds talking about, again, I talked about my book there a second ago. I'm not going to go over this book all day today. I'll remind everybody about it because I was on Sean's show a couple of weeks ago when it debuted, and then I actually did a show one day where I had several great guests talking about security. I just want to make sure that everybody realizes I sat on this book for probably over 10 years waiting for the right time to write it. And why did I wait so long? Because I didn't think America was in the right mindset to actually sit down and start looking at themselves from an attacker's point of view. And that's really what this book does, is it teaches you how to target yourself so that you can understand your own critical areas, the critical times for those areas, the vulnerabilities that can be exploited, and the attacker's avenue of approach that somebody will take to attack you. I'm talking pedophiles, sexual predators in the workplace, terrorists, robbers, burglars, people who will mug you. I'm talking about all these people that will pick you up as a target of opportunity, or people that will follow you and stalk you. You can look at yourself from this perspective. The first thing you have to do is divide your life up into sectors so that you can pinpoint all those criticalities for each sector of your life. And this book, Sheep No More, that's available on Amazon right now, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It comes from my over 20 years in service to this country in various ways as an attacker and a defender. And so the technique that I teach is called attack and defend. And I'm milking that into this part because, for one, I get a limited amount of time on this radio show, and I really want to employ everybody to go out there, employ, I don't know how you say that, but I want implore everybody. See, I'm from Arkansas, so we like to make up words. I want to implore everyone to go out and get this book, because here's the key to this. Yes, this is about securing your own home life, your own homeland. But the reality is, once you start to be aware, it's like a Pandora's box. And you start to realize exceptionalism is right there. You start to realize what's going on in this world. Awareness starts to grow. 800-941-7326. This is the Sean Hannity Radio Show. I'm Jonathan Gillum, your resident Navy SEAL and FBI Special Agent. Here today, we're going to come back and talk about George Washington and the Christmas when he crossed the Delaware. We'll be right back. This is Jonathan Gillum, filling in for my good buddy Sean Hannity on the Sean Hannity Radio Show. I promise I will get the calls. 800-941-7326. 800-941-SEAN. That's 800-941-7326. For those of you that have a short memory span like I do. So listen, here, when I was talking to Lauren about this show today, and I don't know if I said this, if you're driving, like if you took off early and it's Thursday and you're gonna take off tomorrow and you're driving to your relatives, you're gonna want to hear this whole show. So slow down, put the cruise control on, the speed limit, and listen to this show, because it's going to give you great cannon fodder if you're going to a dinner with your family and they're highly liberal and they're, or even if they're conservative, but they're talking about how they should fix it and they should do this. This is the show that you want to listen to, because we're going to talk about things today that's going to help you reflect and help you develop your own understanding of why this country got away from it being exceptional and how we can get back to it. So when I was talking to Lauren about developing this show today, I said, I really want to have a historian on here to talk about George Washington. And, he crossed the Delaware on Christmas night into the next day. So she reached out and got a hold of Tom Maddock. He's a historic interpreter for Washington Crossing Historical Park in Washington Crossing, Pennsylvania. And, Tom, before I set you up, let me just say this real quick. Having been a SEAL, I've done a lot of different training operations. I was never over in combat over in Afghanistan or Iraq. I did my time down in Central South America. But I know how men are when it comes to cold water and when it comes to being cold and doing operations. I know what it's like when you have terrible gear, but I cannot imagine. I want people to think about, in modern-day terms, right, this type of an operation and all the things that could go wrong. So it was about 11 p.m. on Christmas. Washington's army commenced its crossing of the half-frozen river, that's the Delaware, at 3 locations. 2,400 soldiers. That's 2,400 soldiers. No radios, no flashlights, no satellites up in the air, no C-130 Spectra flying over or Predator drones. This is 2,400 soldiers, led by Washington himself. They braved the icy and freezing river and reached New Jersey side of the Delaware just before dawn. I think the first word out of their mouth was, "What is that smell?" So I'm just kidding. I love Jersey. So say again.
Exit 15.
Exactly. So when they got over there, just before dawn, the other 2 divisions, made up of another 3,000 men, and the crucial artillery, they failed to reach the meeting point and the appointed time. So that was their Christmas night. And so just with that discussion there, Tom, what was it like for these individuals? What was it like for George Washington? What was his mindset on Christmas night? Was Christmas the same then as it is now? Was Christmas the same? Did it have the same meaning then as it does now? Was it celebrated the same way? And what was it like for these soldiers that they weren't deployed, they were in their own country?
Well, the whole story is, and you're pretty good on leading it up to the battle, but Washington was desperate. The revolution was hanging by a thread. The enlistments were up at the end of the year, and Washington needed a W. He needed a victory, and he needed one bad. This bold stroke to go down and get the Hessians in Trenton was his way of making that happen. The whole thing was, the problem was getting across the river. The river was about 3 football fields wide that night, 880 feet to be exact. It was 90 inches deep. That size of the river meant the current was very strong. That being said, there's also these huge slabs of ice coming down, which were going to cause Washington problems when he returned. But to get across the river, he had commandeered these boats. It was bitter cold. The soldiers had had bad food. They didn't have any tents. Their blankets had been left when they retreated from Fort Lee in northern New Jersey a month earlier. So these guys, when some of them was rags wrapped around their feet, I'm told some were barefoot. The weather is closing in. The river is starting to freeze, what have you, and they start across. And, of course, at midnight, midway through the crossing, a nasty northeast storm hit. So you've got sleet, freezing rain, snow, and hail coming down, which impedes everything. So Washington, of course, had chosen this as a very bold stroke, was hugely determined to lead his troops to victory. But these 2,400 men, I'm telling you, when you think about what they did, how they persevered, what their commitment to the cause was, is truly remarkable.
So, it's interesting because as a Christian and somebody who, and I was told by my uncle, who's a preacher, I've talked about him on this show before, I was told by my constitutional uncle, if you ever ask the Lord for patience, you better get ready, because that means he's going to build you into a patient person, and it's not easy. Well, no. It's interesting because, George Washington and the Founding Fathers and all these individuals had set out to start this country and this experiment of this new Constitution, and it's as if God laid it out and said, I'm going to make you work for this, because if you want your freedom, I want you to understand how desperately important this actually is. And,
well, it's interesting because if you read the perspective, and you read the perspective of the Revolutionary War from the British perspective, they made 3 miscalculations. And one was that they expected more help from their loyalist buddies, people loyal to the crown, but the big key was that they didn't realize that the American colonists would fight as hard as they did for their freedom and their independence. And that was a major miscalculation, which, of course, worked out well for the Americans. But to continue the scenario, Washington is finally gets his troops across the river, even with this storm raging, and they start down the Trenton, 9 miles south of the landing point, and arrive there shortly after dawn. The surprise element to rise there just at dawn had been eliminated because they were late, but the Hessians who were told something was happening didn't pay attention to it. So Washington was able to get to Trenton, and the thing that made his thing work was that he had taken down 18 cannon, which are 6 times the number of cannon that you'd normally take for a troop that size, and he whipped them right into the high ground. And he then controlled the battle. And instead of shooting cannonballs out of these cannons, anywhere from 3-pounders to up to 6-pound, he was shooting grape shot and canister, which kept the Hessians at bay, because most historical references will tell you that no American lost his life in the Battle of Trenton, because the Hessians couldn't get anywhere near the Americans because of Washington's brilliant stroke to take down cannon, put it on the high ground, and control the battle. And that's what eventually did. Of course, as you know, the battle lasted very little. It was a very short battle. Only 22 Hessians died, including the commander, who took a bullet and died shortly thereafter. But he had been given a note early in the morning of December 26th, which indicated that the spy had told him that the American army was coming, which he put in his pocket and did not read. So there was a number of mistakes and assumptions by the Hessians, which turned out to be very fortuitous for Washington and his army.
It's so amazing, and so those are issues in battle that those are mistakes that you don't want to make. But somebody I told that I was going to be on this show today talking about this, and they sent me a letter that had been written by, and you correct me if I'm wrong, by a General Schuyler, Schuyler, and he wrote it to George Washington. And this is the quote that stood out to me. It said, "Be pleased to make my best regards to General Lee, General Gates, and gentlemen of your suit. I hope we shall meet at a Merry Christmas." And this was by no means a Merry Christmas.
No, and yet I got to be honest with you, Jonathan. I am not familiar with that quote.
So it was written in October before of that year, and
before the battle.
Yeah, before the battle. It was written in October, from what I'm reading. But
now, is this an American or a British?
I'm not sure. I just
there was a General Schuyler up in the Albany area. Whether that was him who did that, which would make sense, I don't know.
So the interesting thing, though, when I read the description of this and what George Washington, when I was doing the research and talking to you today, the research that I did, some of the stuff that he dealt with is exactly what we deal with today. When you look at his command was not unified. The supply channels for food, arms, and pay had broken down. The citizen soldiers decided to come and go as they pleased a lot of the times, and basically there was just a breakdown in the understanding of what the military actually was. And then here's the biggest thing, was when you take those different things that are annoying and you put in there the political appointees, who a lot of these were young people who were rich, but they came from rich families, and so they wanted them to be made high-ranking military individuals. That is one of the biggest problems that we have today in our military, is not necessarily that political appointees are getting their kids made high rank, but the political appointees are the biggest problems that we have with our military. We can't fight a proper war. And that's what I loved about this, was George Washington dealt with all this stuff, but yet at the same time, he still fought a tactical war.
Well, and you're absolutely right. It's interesting because Washington was learning on the job. He was learning how to be a leader. He was learning how to be a military man. He had to organize an army. There was no military experience. There was no industrial military complex, if you would. There was no structure. These people came from booksellers, one was a Quaker, converted Quaker, General Greene. So these guys had to learn how to be leaders. They had to learn how to be military people. Discipline, it was absolutely unheard of. So Washington, besides doing all that stuff, trying to keep an army together so it wouldn't evaporate, also had to fight the enemy. So the number of things that Washington dealt with very successfully was truly remarkable. And he may not have been a military person brought up in the military, like coming through West Point or Annapolis, but man, he really did a wonderful job in pulling it all together, keeping it all together, and then coming out with a victory.
How much do we know about the morale of these soldiers when that night and when they crossed? The fact that it was Christmas, like you said, some of them didn't have shoes, which I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I agree with you. The morale, I think a lot of it is it's very logical. I mean, Washington had started out in the defense of New York in August 24th with about 20,000 men. When he crosses the Delaware into Pennsylvania on December 7, 8, and 9, he's down to about 3,500, 4,000 at best. These are some hardcore guys. Some of the people had gone home. Some of the people had come back in, as you mentioned. So it was catch as catch can. But the morale was predictable because of lack of pay, lack of food, lack of clothing. Medicine was shaky at best. But it's interesting, the fire of liberty, the fire burning in these guys' bellies was what kept them going. But I've read that one of the biggest boosts to morale was Thomas Paine's pamphlet called The American Crisis. And that was read to the troops on December 23rd by their officers. It had been written during the retreat through New Jersey, published in Philadelphia, and then brought up to the troops. And, of course, that's the pamphlet that starts out, "These are the times that try men's souls."
Wow.
And the sunshine patriot and the summertime soldier shrink from their duty. Those who stand it now will be loved by man and woman. It's that apparently was a huge boost to morale.
That's unbelievable. Listen, I got to cut it right there. But Tom, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This is exactly what everybody need to hear. Tom,
okay.
You got it, buddy. And I'll have you on again sometime. I can't thank you enough for this. This history is what people need to hear. Thank you very much. Tom Maddock.
I agree with you more.
Historical interpreter for Washington Crossing Historical Park in Washington Crossing, Pennsylvania. This is Jonathan Gillum. Man, what a story. I hope that motivates you. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk to some good friends of mine, Karen and Bob Vaughn, here in just a minute. This is Jonathan Gillum on the Sean Hannity Radio Show, 800-941-7326. Let's make America great again. Let's do it. This is Jonathan Gillum filling in for my good buddy Sean Hannity. And we got it real quick before we go to another break. I just want to leave everybody with this before we come back and talk to Karen and Bob Vaughn. They're the parents of a fallen Navy SEAL who died in Afghanistan August 6, 2011. And, you know, after listening to that about Washington and all the things that his troops were going through and that he went through, it's going to be a great contrast to talking to Karen and Bob Vaughn. But make sure as you're driving down the road that you go to Amazon.com and get Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Go get it. I'm telling you right now, this book will change your life. And also, The Experts, my show, every night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Next week, it's going to be on Newsmax from 1 to 2. This is Jonathan Gillum back on the Sean Hannity radio show with my favorite. There's like, literally, I say this every time, there's like 50 people back here monitoring and working this show, minus 48. You got Lauren Ethan back here with me today, running the whole show. And making
but we're worth 40 or 50 people, right?
You're worth 40 or 50 people. Lauren plus 2 more. So that's an inside joke. So, you know, I've been talking about my next 2 guests for quite a while. I love them both. They're amazing people. And I have renamed, it's Karen and Billy Vaughn, but I've renamed Billy. For some reason today, I've renamed him Bob. I don't know why I've been calling Billy. I've been calling you Bob all day. I don't know why. But so it's always great.
I've been called worse before, a lot worse.
Well, it's great to have you guys on. I got to see you at the Christmas party last week, and so for people that don't know who you are, and I just can't imagine that they don't know who you are. You're the parents of the fallen Navy SEAL Aaron Vaughn and the co-founders of Operation 300. You actually co-founded that with your daughter Tara Baldwin, and you both, look, I just wrote a book called Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. People can go get it on Amazon right now. But you guys, and that's one of the hardest things I've ever done, you both have written a book. And that's pretty amazing when you think about it. Let's see, Billy, your book is Betrayed, the shocking true story of Extortion 17 is told by a Navy SEAL's father. And Karen is the author of a new book, World Changer, A Mother's Story. And I can't thank you guys enough. I wanted to bring you all on. I thought about after I saw you at the Christmas party, I wanted to do the show today about Christmas and the reality of what Christmas is, how the spirit that we have during the Christmas 3 weeks, really, that we celebrate Christmas now, how that's the reality. If we want to make this country great again, that's the attitude and the spirit that we need to have 365 days out of the year so that we can completely create the unity. And I just wanted to ask you all, you know, I haven't been a SEAL, never been in combat, but haven't been a SEAL, and understanding the reality, especially when I was in the FBI here and going through doors where people may or may not have guns on the other side, understanding what I'd be giving up. And I'm sure Aaron knew exactly and charged into battle, a very happy man, charging into battle and into these dangerous situations is what SEALs live for. But I wanted to ask you all a very tough question. And after the death of Aaron, and I'm a Christian, I believe that you're never dead. You live forever. Once you're born, death is a doorway that we have to go through. But what has changed in significance to the Christmas holiday for you all? I know that's a hard question, but when you look at reality from a Christian perspective, the reality is death is a tough but a very beautiful thing, in that of the location where they are now, and how significant is Christmas for you all now?
Well, let me just say something here, Karen. It's obviously it's very significant. You described it very well, Jonathan, by the way, and thank you for having us today. But it is. It's where we all want to be. But for us who are left behind, we're still sad. I know Aaron is at home with the Lord, based on the promise that Jesus made, based on the decision that Aaron made to receive the gift of salvation. It's we, the ones who are left behind, who are in the temporary place. We're in a place that we don't belong, so we're not home, and we do miss Aaron. We miss him very much. We still put his stocking out every Christmas, just like we have since the first Christmas that we had him. He was our firstborn, our only boy, our only son, and we still put his Christmas out, and there his stocking out, and there's there's a place. There's just a hole there. There's a hole there in everything you do, and even at the same time, there is a joy there, even in all the sadness, because He is where, if you have children, and you're a believer, you always pray that your children will end up, and He is there. We just never thought. I never thought about how the homegoing would be.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Christmas is really difficult to get through, and I'll tell you why, Jonathan. It's because, and by the way, hi, thanks so much for doing this.
God, I love you guys.
But I love you too. But it's because of this. Throughout your life, you look forward to the holidays for one reason, because those are times where you get to break away from all the hustle and bustle of life and just spend that quality time with your family. So, Christmas is one of those holiday seasons where we get a lot of extra time, where it's so family centric. And so when you have a huge gaping hole in your world of your family, it makes it a very difficult time of year. But at the same time, Billy and I are just what he said. We know where Aaron is. We know that we'll be with him again one day. We know that even though he died 7,000 miles away from all of us who loved him, he took his last breath in the arms of the one who loved him more than any of us could have. And that's our hope, and that's our joy. And holidays, we try to celebrate them because we got a lot of wonderful people still here in our life in this family, and we want to stay here and present for them, and that's what we try to do.
Well, you know what's interesting about this? Doing this interview is probably not as hard, but it's hard on me to do this interview as well as have you all answer these questions. But I think they're important questions. But just this is what's interesting about my father. Actually was born on Thanksgiving and died on Christmas, if believe it or not. And I was 13 years old. I was with him when he died. I remember walking over to him and opening his eyes up and realizing at 13 years old the difference between life and death, and the presence here and the presence there. And one of the things that I've noticed out of that is what came out of my father was had an IQ of over 160, but had a terrible time in life, having been verbally abused by one parent and spoiled by the other. But what came out of his death was probably far more of an extreme impact on this world, far beyond what his life was actually capable of inspiring. And when I look at like the books that you've written, when I look at Operation 300, what your daughter Tara has done, and it's pretty amazing the way death in such a sad state is such an amazing door for incredible things to happen. So I just want you all, I want to give you a chance to talk about Operation 300 and about how important it is and how people can donate to that.
Okay. Karen, let me say something just right quick, hon. That is true. Everything you said right there is true. Same way with Aaron. Aaron's life, since he's been gone, has made an impact on this world that I'm sure he could never have made were he still alive. And that's, in my opinion, that's why God has to be in control, is in control, and has to make decisions like that. Because I would never give my boy up for anything. I would never give him up. But I know the Lord loved him more than I ever could. And the Lord makes those decisions, and we trust that the Lord knows best, and He does, and we trust that everything has to go by the throne of God before it happens.
Let me just say one thing there, Billy, because
go ahead.
I'll say this from the perspective that Aaron had, is that you didn't give him up, that you raised him right. And I always say, if you discipline your children, you're going to raise a disciplined adult. And he's a man that charged into battle. He made that decision, and God was with him. Listen, a parent can't do any more than that.